Welcome to IAB Canada's podcast, The Business of Digital.
Within hours.
All right. Well, I'm thrilled to be here in LA with Alanna Gombert, who is with MetaX and used to be at IAB Tech Lab. Managing Director of Tech Lab, is that what your title was?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Creator.
GM, Managing Director.
And creator of Ads.txt, but nobody really talks about that.
Ads.txt was one of the creators of Ads.txt, but not the only one, but yes.
Amazing. And I think that is making a lot of progress right now, and it's made definitely a lot of noise in the industry. Something that IAB Canada has been talking to its members about a lot over the past 2 years, and you can imagine, has been this whole call for transparency and this...
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a dire need for really, and I hate this term, but for a paradigm shift, right? But it's true.
It is true.
And one of the things that we talked about in our newsletter this year was that the problem we're faced with in the industry is that in 2018, we're struggling to put Band-Aids on issues that exist in the current way that the internet works.
Yes.
While really, really, really needing to understand what is about to come.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's why I'm really happy to be here with you, and I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on what the landscape could look like, what it looks like right now.
Right.
I think one of the first questions I would have is that. When people thought of the internet, when it first, when online advertising first started, it felt like the Wild West and all that. And now with blockchain sort of bubbling up, specifically for online advertising, I wonder sometimes it's not really Wild West, is it? Isn't it? It feels a little bit different because things have already been created. We know of a world already.
Yes.
So maybe we'll start there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So it's true that the advertising technology landscape has become very monolithic, right? And so we're trying to figure out how to make things better from an older tech stack. And one of the things that blockchain promises us is a way to transcend that monolithic stack. And blockchain is encrypted. It's immutable, which means it's really hard to change it. It brings in disparate voices with the consensus algorithms that are built on top of it, and it tokenizes economies. So it's a really interesting way in many different facets to think about operationalizing different sectors of industry, including advertising. So MetaX, at its core, is a supply chain blockchain company for advertising. And our first product is called AdChain. It's a registry built on Ethereum. Ethereum is a public blockchain. There's public and private blockchains. And to be very, very clear, a blockchain by itself is a ledger system that's encrypted, immutable, and decentralized. It can be public, which means anyone can access it from anywhere in the world, or it can be private, which means it's permissioned. It's a closed down system. The AdChain registry is a public blockchain decentralized application, or a DApp, as we call them for short. We have acronyms in crypto too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Some more
Something
stuff
to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
We call them DApps, and AdChain is a DApp on the Ethereum mainnet. Mainnet means it's in production.
Okay.
And all it is, it's a very simple implementation. It is a whitelist. And to start is a list of publishers, the token holders. So there's a token called Ad Token that was offered at a token generation event in June of last year. And 600 million tokens were purchased in the open market by folks who wanted to use Ad Token in the AdChain registry.
Okay, wait,
Yep,
hold on.
I'm holding.
So 600,000 tokens. Okay.
Million.
Sorry, 600 million. Okay. So how does one know how many one needs?
Sure. So
How do you calculate that?
It depends on the registries. Our registry is the very first, we call them TCR, Token Curated Registries, one more acronym for you. And it's the very first time we've implemented one of these things into production. The market decides how many tokens you need to vote. So the purpose of a token and the purpose of the registry is to curate a whitelist publicly of publisher and advertiser domains that are quote unquote quality. And the quality definition is defined by the group of token holders. So it's a consensus-based public definition of quality based on voting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so then from what you're describing, it sounds like the advertisers will get behind this.
Yes.
Is that sort of the play? Is that the advertisers will feel, involved in setting up this chain?
Yes, indeed.
As you will. Okay.
Correct.
All right. That's great.
The advertisers and also the consumers, because the token sale was public for a reason. We want everyone who wants to be part of the advertising ecosystem to be able to have a voice. So consumers, corporations, advertisers, publishers, tech partners, and anyone in between can buy tokens, and they're very cheap. They're cheap for a reason, right? But we don't determine the price. The price is determined by the secondary markets. But it's called a utility token, consumer token, which is used to do something. In this case, the something is voting. And the voting is open to everyone who has a token.
Okay. So do you want to describe what the MetaX model looks like then in action?
Sure.
Or just to sort of bring some clarity to the first product that's been
Absolutely.
built?
So in terms of the business model for the ad chain registry, it is an open source project. So we don't make money off of it. I know that sounds a little crazy, right? We don't think about revenue in the same way when it comes to crypto because there's different ways of thinking about revenue and making money. There is the concept of holding crypto. So we have Ether. Ether is the currency of Ethereum. That's one way of making money as a crypto company. The other way is charging for services. And so we are at our core a services company, a services technology company. The TCRs we've created, people are calling us to make their own TCR. They want to learn how to use and create voting systems using tokens.
Right.
So we're going to be charging for that as a consultant, as a consulting services company, a traditional SaaS model, or just traditional straight shot consulting model. And we'll be building TCRs for companies. We also have an anti-fraud solution. We've partnered with a very illustrious fraud fighter, who I can't name on the podcast, and we are working on technology solutions to help track and fight fraud on the blockchain, which is pretty cool, and we charge for that. And we also are thinking about ways to augment the tech stack, the advertising tech stack in crypto. So as part of our white paper that we created and pushed out during our token generation event, there was mention of a new type of ad server and bidder, and that's coming as well on the crypto side.
So this is really interesting. And when you talk about this service to monitor and to combat fraud in the blockchain, a lot of, I think, that the public feels that blockchain in of itself is supposed to be the solution to fraud. And so when you say that you're building something on top of the blockchain that is meant to protect it,
right?
It's a little bit like, okay, wait, hold on a second. Are we just doing the same thing for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of confusion about what blockchain is and is not. At its core, again, it's a ledger system. So it's garbage in, garbage out. If you put false information onto the blockchain, it will stay there and be verified as correct data, right? What happens is, because it's very difficult to change entries, you can't doctor data very easily, right? You can't change database entries. You can't change pricing. You can't change impression counts. So when something's written to the blockchain, it's there forever. And so now you have an onus on you to prove the data. And you can look at patterns, and because you can't change it, the patterns are going to be extant, and they're going to be what has been written and not, you know that it's not been tampered with in any way. And that's really important. But to say that blockchain is fraud-free is false.
Okay. So then we're thinking about some sort of a verification system to get into the ledger to begin with.
Yes.
Type of thing. And
Absolutely.
then also a forensics type of activity that would
Yes.
then be able to actually audit the transactions that happened in the chain.
That's right.
Okay, that sounds good. And how does this play out in tandem with what's going on right now? So another sort of, maybe it's a misconception or maybe it's denial, but when people hear blockchain is coming, and we have our current systems in place, what does it look like when the world is functioning on blockchain, but the world is also functioning on just the way that we know that it's working right now? How
Sure.
long does that parallel? And how long do you think, is it 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? How far out are we before this entire thing
flips over to crypto?
Yeah, flips to crypto.
Yeah. So I think that in general, right now we're on step 0.5 for blockchain and advertising. We're not even at 1 yet.
5 of what?
0.5, half. We're at
Okay.
half.
All
We're not
right.
even at the full step yet.
Okay.
We're all in. 2018 is a proof of concept year.
Okay.
The ad chain registry is launching on April 24th into QA. We are thinking about the next registry systems. We're building ones for clients and thinking about TCRs in general. And when they go live, it is the first time we'll see in the wild how these communities perform. Kind of like SimCity, if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's like you release your voting system into the wild, your token holders start interacting with the system and defining quality. And you have no idea what they're going to define, right? It's very fascinating to me. And I'm very excited to see what comes out of that initial release and launch.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm pretty excited.
Okay.
From a nerd perspective. Now, in terms of flipping to full crypto, I think we need to prove out the business case, right, which we're doing this year. I think the blockchain ledger system, the interesting part about that for public chains, again, public and private, is you can trigger a smart contract anywhere that enables smart contracts. So public and private Ethereum again is a flavor of blockchain. It supports a concept called smart contracts. Think of it as scripts.
Okay.
You can execute business logic against an event or whatever. It's a code.
It's a transaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's code.
Yeah.
You can use that for a number of different things in advertising. Let's say you want to look for discrepancy rates, and you only log impression counts to the blockchain if you hit above a 20% discrepancy rate. You write to the blockchain, and you can reuse a smart contract to either stop the campaign, send an email, whatever it is. You don't have to monitor that campaign by hand anymore. It's already doing it for you. That's one way.
Wow. So the impact on reporting is going to be huge.
Yes.
So the just to facilitate quick processing of data.
Yes.
And quick recall and organization of data as well.
Right.
So okay, so that's fascinating. And then I'm guessing that companies like your own, so like MetaX, will have APIs.
Yes.
That then extend out to other properties that are then able to benefit from your. Okay.
That's correct. That's right. That's perfect. Yes.
That's amazing. That's so fun.
It's fun. And, everyone keeps talking about our favorite topic of the year, which is GDPR. And GDPR can also be helped by blockchain implementation, specifically in TCRs. We've been talking a lot to folks in Brussels, in Europe overall, about using TCRs to track two things. One, opt-in, right? And then two, variables to track. Now, this can be not only for GDPR, but in the face of public outcry on data sharing and data quote-unquote leakage, and I hate that term, but it's okay. You can have token holders vote on the data variables they'd like to share to corporations and publicly. And then you have a global whitelist of variables voted on by the community that corporations could potentially use because they can weigh in. Consumers can weigh in.
Okay, so on the subject of privacy,
Yes.
and one of our favorite subjects these days, because as you know, the Canadian legislation is actually quite similar to the GDPR. It's not quite as stringent. Of course, we are, very concerned about moving to an opt-in environment. However, currently it stands as an opt-out. But one of the discussions that we've had at Parliament as well is this notion of right to erasure and right to be forgotten, in air quotes. So I wonder, when you think about blockchain, the ledger, all of these different factors, what happens if somebody wants to remove or to mute, or hide their transactions? Is that something that is possible or legal, or what's
right?
What do you?
It's a really good question, and so what the answer to that is, currently at least, you would not store on the blockchain anything that is personally identifiable.
Yeah.
You would store pointers.
Okay.
And you could remove the link to that pointer that's linking over to off chain to that PII or to that identifiable information, and erase that person, erase that data. So the quick answer is, don't store anything in the blockchain that you wouldn't want to have there long term. You can point back out.
Which is interesting. I mean, from a consumer perspective,
right.
That's something that you only maybe know 5 years later.
Right, exactly. And so we always get questions, and one of the biggest questions that I get from reporters is always, well, blockchain is not GDPR compliant. I'm like, well, it is.
Right. You
don't store public information that is personally identifiable on a public blockchain. I think it's common sense, but you would be surprised that people are just like, well, why not? Well, because everyone can see it, number one.
Right.
And then number two, and equally as important, you can't delete it. So it's always there. So how are you going to expire that user? And so that's why you need an off-chain storage system with pointers pointing to that storage system. So you can sever the pointers. And then off-chain storage you can delete.
A while ago, a few months ago actually, when we were at the Leadership Summit, the IAB Leadership Summit, you were describing the research capabilities of MetaX and the ability to really monitor every single transaction, and of course, the way that it sounds is it's so sweeping, and it's so it's almost overwhelming.
It is.
But how do you pitch this? So let's say I'm a consumer products company, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say, because I'm fed up. I'm done. I want transparency. I want accountability, and I don't trust anyone anymore. I want to hear it straight from a crypto queen.
Step one in any of our pitches is we start very small. And we talk about the ways you can use the blockchain and use transparent solutions. And again, the blockchain piece is really only the ledger system, but the technology that we have partnered and built is the anti-fraud technology that we're using, and we're marrying those two together. So you have the beauty of an amazing, kick-ass technology solution on the anti-fraud side, plus the blockchain ledger where you can store and trigger smart contracts against events. It's interesting to me that people also seem to think that blockchain is supposed to be used for storage of all things, right? In the press, they keep talking about blockchain is slow, RTB will never work on blockchain. I'm like, well, it shouldn't, right? That's not what the purpose is. It's not to dump data onto the blockchain. The purpose is to use it judiciously, smartly, to trigger events based on behavior, right? So, and that behavior could be, again, discrepancies. It could be different creatives serving that were blocked or banned by getting through somehow. It depends on what it is.
That's kind of interesting. So let's say, and I'm not suggesting anything here, but we have a lot of conversations, policy conversations in Canada around, what if there was some sort of legislation around blocking certain types of ads to certain types of audiences? Is that a circumstance where blockchain would be utilized, or could it be? I
think tracking those ads, as long as the ads were tagged appropriately, and this is where the human error comes in, right? Because there is still that notion of you can't track what you don't know. And now you can track ad IDs, and you can track where they serve.
Right.
But a lot of the time you don't know what that advertisement looks like, nor do you check. It's such a large, sweeping industry with so many impressions that it's very difficult to go back and audit that. But there are ways to tag identifiers onto the creatives where you can track them in a better way. And there is a plan in place for MetaX to create a creative registry just for that purpose.
So then it would be by creative, so piece by creative.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. As opposed
to
campaign level,
Correct.
it would be by creative level, which again goes back to the transaction, right? So as granular as you can get with these tokens in order for you to get the robust
Absolutely.
reporting that you need out of the system. So that makes it a lot different from the stuff that you're so familiar with, like OpenRTB and those types of systems, right? Because this is much more, piece by piece. Interesting.
Yeah, the creative agencies are calling us because they're frustrated. They can't track their assets when they get released into the wild. The metadata gets stripped. They can't find their ID systems. It's very difficult for a creative agency to see the efficacy of their creative.
Whether it's owned or paid, even, right? So
it
because
disappears
sometimes it's
into the wild.
shared and that the earned.
Yes.
Right. So interesting. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Cool. Love it.
We're having fun.
Yeah. So are you? Because I don't know. I saw a picture on Facebook a few weeks ago with you sitting in some sort of I don't know which state it was, but you're doing policy work.
I'm doing a lot of policy work. Yes,
so
I can.
What's going on there? What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? So the industry, the crypto blockchain industry, created a new trade association. It's called the Digital Asset Trade Association, and it's focused on lobbying worldwide for the purposes and empowerment and the future state of the crypto and blockchain industries.
Amazing.
And it's been fun. I've the IAB and the IAB Tech Lab both had a large presence in government. In Canada, notwithstanding, everyone works very hard with Parliament, and in the US, it's the Hill, and in Europe, it's Brussels, except for in the UK. So, I am learning now all the pain that everyone else felt, and also the reward. Right, I'm being a bit silly, but policy work to me has been very rewarding. It's new, and it's new in a new industry, so it's doubly new. And thinking about ways to legitimize the crypto industry in each market has been a very fascinating problem to solve. So we started data out of the Davos meetings of the World Economic Forum this year. We went to DC a few weeks after Davos. There are 7 co-founders, and they all come from different disparate crypto companies, but all have policy backgrounds in some way.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's great for you too, from a learning and immersion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
In the IAB Tech Lab, I definitely learned a lot about policy from the FTC and the FCC perspective, but now I'm learning a lot broader communities of securities commissioners and the SEC and the CFTC and the FINRA, all fun stuff.
Wonderful.
So I was sitting in the House of Representatives in the Senate in Wyoming.
Right.
We joined an effort there that was spearheaded by Caitlin Long to pass 5 crypto bills in Wyoming. We passed all 5.
Wow.
Which is cool. And one of the more salient changes that were made was to define a utility token for the first time in U.S. law. So that was pretty awesome.
Stop.
Yes.
No. Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
It was cool. It was very, very cool.
That's really impressive. Okay. Yeah. So it's been defined and it's on the books.
It is.
Okay.
And now in Colorado, yesterday, we passed in the House of Representatives unanimously in committee the same idea, defining a utility token in Colorado. So we're going state by state to at least get one definition on the books.
Okay.
And then also working in partnership with the federal government as well.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And so when you look at the bigger picture, because I would like to talk to you for about 4 days around this stuff. And it's still, I know I'm going to listen to this again and I'm going to be like, I should have asked you about 15 other questions. But, all this stuff I think is going to become clearer as I guess it progresses as it unfolds. The biggest worry I think that our members have is that they're missing something, or that they should be doing something or being active around something. What would you say to them right now?
I think they should test, right?
Okay.
Install a private Ethereum node. Just try to figure it out in your own time. Have your teams figure it out, understand, learn. There's a few flavors of blockchain that are important to think about. One of them is Ethereum. One of them is Hyperledger. That's an open source Linux Foundation group run by Brian Behlendorf, one of the co-founders of Organic back in the day.
Awesome.
So he has a very deep understanding of advertising, which is great. There are other enterprise solutions of blockchain, something called Cadena, which is more transactionally focused. So heavy transactions like an RTB would be better suited for something like that in some ways. So learning about all of those things, knowing that a public and private blockchain is step one.
Okay. And is it something that, is there going to be remember when Flash died?
Never died, still alive. People are still rolling it out.
Okay, but when we thought Flash. It was going to die, right? When we wanted to, when we were we were murdering it?
We tried to kill it.
So is it going to be something like that? Do you think? Will it be like a all right, everybody, on May 20? No, that's GDPR. Sorry, but on May 26th, there's going to be, it's all going to be blockchain. So you better be ready.
I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is there'll be new industries popping up from the blockchain communities and the crypto communities. You're seeing new ways of creating content. You're seeing new ways of creating communications, legal documents. There's a whole new world popping up from the blockchain community that will operate side by side with the advertising, but also just business, right? Because it runs the gamut, and it also closes the loop within the verticals, because it's not just advertising anymore. When we talk to marketers, they say, guess what? We're not really marketers. We are large companies that create products that have marketing divisions, right? And yes, the money that we spend in marketing, it supports our larger business, our actual business, but everyone calls us advertisers, and we're not advertisers. Right? So blockchain, in that case, we are being asked to help those types of companies track their internal processes and track marketing spend against everything else happening on the distribution line, the product creation line, the factories, depending on what the business is. And that's what their needs are. Right? And so it's super fascinating to me from just a supply chain perspective.
It is fascinating. And I think you've hit on something really interesting. And having myself worked on the brand side, brand strategy, as well as all the other sides of media and advertising, oftentimes the conversation breaks into something completely different.
Yes.
How do we mobilize a loyalty program, as an example? How does that work in the future? Right. And one thing that has been on the tip of my tongue a lot, and I feel like it's something that I even personally want to explore, is this idea of fractional compensation.
Yes.
And this notion of consumers need to be compensated somehow with something, and what does currency look like? If we're in the mind space where we're starting to reinvent what currency is altogether, right? Now is the moment to actually start to create new realities and new value propositions for those consumers built on those the new notions, like the new.
Certainly.
Is that what you're kind of okay?
I absolutely agree with you. So one of my co-founders of Data, the trade association, is Brittany Kaiser, who was on the cover of The Guardian 2 weeks ago as whistleblower number 2 for Cambridge Analytica. She worked at Cambridge, and she was part of the Brexit campaign. And thinking about self-sovereign identity is really top of mind both for the crypto industry as well as the technology industry at large. Right. Having consumers manage their own data, being able to monetize their own data, and become self-sovereign in their data identity is paramount to our survival as humans, in my mind.
It's like music to my ears because a lot of this stuff is viewed as quack.
Yeah.
Right. And people don't want to hear it.
Right.
But I feel really that this is a real, I don't know, like a force, like an energy that it can't be any other way in the future. And especially now as all the pieces are starting to come together, in 2007, it was obviously I was wrong, but I felt that at some point people were going to start deleting profiles and getting concerned about their privacy. Of course, it took a long time for this whole thing to play out. So this may be very far off where we're starting to actually master our own privacy, but I feel like things have accelerated as these things have become exposed.
Absolutely.
And so it's interesting that you're talking about your co-founder who is, one of the whistleblowers in something that has actually created a lot of media swirl around the notion of where do you draw the line of what belongs to the ethers and what belongs to yourself.
Correct.
And how do you dispense it? So that's really fascinating. Well, Alanna, you know what? We're going to wrap up, but one of the things that I wanted to make sure of was that you're coming to Mix, right?
Yes, I am coming to Mix. As you put me on the spot on the podcast.
Amazing. It's on the record.
Now it's on the blockchain, if you will. Yes.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And,
thank you.
And we'll talk again, I'm sure, in the next coming months.
I hope so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on IAB Canada's podcast, The Business of Digital.